Picture this. A poor little overweight 16-year-old boy on December 10th, 2020. His year being demolished by the ravages of a certain unnamed disease. And his only hope for any sense of escape was the upcoming promised Cyberpunk 2077. His and his trusty little base PS4 seemed equipped to take on the world. The release date rolled around. He waited expectantly for the download to finish, or for him to put the CD in, as demonstrated by the animation. For the download to finish with his shitty 8 megabytes a second Wi-Fi when all of a sudden, oh my god.
Calm down, for fuck's sake!
Giant.
What?
My only issue would be the double tap to...
Ah! Oh!
The world melted. This is quite pleasant, actually. PS4s melted. Wait, that one normally happens. PlayStation stopped selling the game. Apologies were given, but they certainly weren't accepted. All hope seemed lost of Cyberpunk 2077 being relegated to anything other than a flop. It was doomed to the annals of botched launches alongside others like No Man's Sky or Battlefront 2. But alas, poor little me, not me, was determined enough to finish the entire game on my struggling PS4, failing to hear most of the game over the jet engine the poor console was repeatedly transforming into. But even through everything, I still had hope for the game being good. I have a confession to make.
Hello, my son.
That poor overweight teenager was me. I know, I fooled all of you. There was no way you could have got that before. Foreshadowing is a literary device. But the enduring love that I still hold for Cyberpunk is the main reason why I want to make this video. To document how the turbulent and frankly awful launch managed to transform itself into a game that nowadays stands up to the best of RPG games, even in my humble, extremely biased opinion, being at least as good as, if not better, than CD Projekt Red's previous style, The Witcher 3. I know, opinion that might get me taken out and shot, but I think it's true. That's the point. So sit back, relax, as I unveil the reasons as to how Cyberpunk 2077 went from a flop to, like, not a flop. So, to properly analyze how CD Projekt managed to salvage the game, we must first identify the core issues with the game, to identify why it even launched in the state that it was in. The first, to be honest, the most glaring and the most foremost issue was the bugs. On launch, you couldn't go 5 seconds on any social media without seeing a Cyberpunk bug compilation, and honestly, it was for a good reason. from cars randomly deciding that they no longer wish to exist on the mortal plane, to disabled NPCs in wheelchairs having their paralysis cured seemingly by adrenaline. Don't know, maybe I should try drugs. No, paralyzed, but maybe like doubly stand up. I don't know. To the player character, learning how to use Gary's mod no-clip features and fall directly through the apparently transparent crust of Night City. Whilst I could go on and on about what the bugs were, I think a more interesting topic to focus on is how exactly these managed to slip through the cracks of a company as prestigious as CD Projekt Red. The answer, as it mostly always is corporate greed. How ironic that a game blatantly criticizing the follies of increasing corporatization fell victim to the same thing it seemed to be criticizing. An article from The Medium claims that CD Projekt Red has promised an employee bonus upon meeting certain results for Cyberpunk 2077. The developer had ordered mandatory 6-day working weeks with longer hours than usual just to deliver the game on time. So it's only natural to assume that the increased stress apparent during these crunch times contributed to large amounts of these bugs. But the fact still stands that QA, quality assurance, should still have caught a significant amount of them, considering that a large portion of the bugs reported weren't exactly subtle and or hard to miss or hard to replicate. This seemingly is answered by a video by a YouTuber known as Upper Echelon, who reported that a whistleblower had told him that most of these bugs had managed to slip by undetected due to the QA company, Quantic Lab, lying to CDPR. Whilst the veracity of these claims obviously cannot be entirely corroborated due to the status of the leaker wishing to stay anonymous, it would seem to explain some of the glaring issues. However, it has to still be noted that whilst large portions of the playtesting may have been outsourced to contractors that failed to report the bugs, the fact still stands that at least some form of QA should have been conducted internally at CDPR. The extreme stress of both the crunch and the worldwide pandemic that was ravaging the world at the time, certain leeway can obviously be given to them, but this cannot be as easily stated about the next most glaring issue, one that I had personal experience with being an issue.
A high rate of violence, and more people living below the poverty line than anywhere else.
The decision to launch the game that was clearly far too intensive for the likes of the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 to handle on the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 was an interesting decision. I understand from a money-making perspective because after all, I like money, but it should have been obvious that it wasn't going to work. But then again, the company had promised multiple times that it would indeed launch on last-gen consoles, with employee Alvin Liu, a UI designer, who's going to be represented by this stock photo businessman. The stock photo's name is Kevin, I don't care what anyone says, saying that we're targeting consoles as first-class platforms, but the graphics are quite amazing for what you're going to get from Cyberpunk 2077 on consoles and low-end PCs. This wasn't true at launch, and whilst it may have some truth now, the game is still not ideal on last-gen consoles, so Kevin, I'm sorry, but into the internal damnation fires of Twitter you go. Whilst it's clear to anyone who has at least 4 brain cells to rub together that CDPR may have slightly too moderately overestimated the capabilities of last-gen consoles. In their defense, while some testing could have revealed the obvious inability for last-gen consoles to adequately run their game, I don't blame them for trying, as also it would have been easier to completely neglect the 2 older consoles who were just trying their best. It would have excluded large portions of the player base, as the next-gen consoles had barely been out a month at Cyberpunk's release, that being November 12th, the PS5, and November 10th, the Series X. And then maybe the PS5 would have actually had a game. I'm sorry. Whilst it certainly would be easier to relegate the foolishness of the developers to just pure greed, I don't believe that's the case. a truly greedy company would have released the game and let it stew in its failure, rather than dedicating the better part of the next 3 years worth of development to bringing the game to the state that they wanted it to be in. For that reason, I believe that some form of leeway is a fair compromise to consider the game's attempted launch on last-gen consoles as a form of trying to allow as many gamers as humanly possible to experience their game. Which, considering the sheer length of development, with the initial teaser trailer arriving in 2012 when I was 8? Oh, what the fuck. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Me, 2024, I just said that, don't Google it, I came up with it. It is a phrase that perfectly describes how Cyberpunk's launch went, especially with our final reason as to what exactly went wrong, being it's in CDPR's HQ. To properly illustrate how exactly overpromised the game was, it is probably better to list some of the promised features, being actual police and cover-up police and missing police distribution, deep RPG elements, NPCs with actual daily routines, insanely detailed character creations, including free relationships, a lot of meaningful relationships, and a dynamic weapon system that did pose a character threat to your character, and also a rideable metro, and a polished experience, as smooth as Red Dead 2. This was an awful idea. Well, that's enough of that. Jesus. But yeah, whilst obviously many of these promised features either never materialized or took until the 2.0 release to come anywhere close to true, mainly the police, it demonstrates a lack of clear direction and idea of what they could accomplish in the 3-ish years of actual development time. I personally don't believe that all overpromising comes from a source of intentional maliciousness, intended to siphon the money out of the poor, unsuspecting consumer's wallet, and is merely developers trying to deliver as much as humanly possible to please as many people as humanly possible. I mean, the tale of overpromising and underdelivering is a tale as old as time, i.e. like 10-ish years ago, with games like No Man's Sky promising the literal universe and barely managing to deliver planets that don't feel like baby's first Minecraft mod, but somehow at an even lonelier scale. Or Anthem, but that one, like, does anyone even remember that? But there are also games like Fallout 76, launched to a frankly disastrous launch that for any other development staff would have meant the swift execution and moving on from. But these games defied that fate. Not you, Anthem, and through an uncompromising and committed dev team managed to crawl back into relevance, with No Man's Sky recently launching its 25th update. What the fuck, Sean? Jesus Christ, you move on to something else. Oh, you are? Good, just don't do the same thing again. And Fallout 76, also probably doing something. I'm gonna be honest, I love Fallout, and played them since like 2012, 2011-ish, but I just could not get into 76. Last I saw was like Pittsburgh or something, so yeah.
Welcome to Pittsburgh. You! Oh no, it really is Pittsburgh!
While I may have slightly gotten off track there, the point remains the same. Developers that promise the skies and deliver some worm they found in the garden may seem to be as unreliable or intentionally doing it to inflate sales, but it more often comes from an actual source of pride and overambition than anywhere malicious. Okay, phew. Now that this section is drawing to a close, I can say something positive about the game. As much as it might seem that I do not like or enjoy Cyberpunk, it's quite the opposite. I've loved the game since I first played it all those years ago, even when it was a buggy mess that I struggled to get 15 FPS on. I still love the setting, the stories, and the characters. One of my fondest memories was driving around the Biotechnica Flats, Johnny's 911 at a smooth 22 FPS. As outside of the city was the only place my game could run smooth in their fucking PowerPoint, with the radio blaring, just thinking that I absolutely love this game. So, Without further ado, let us get into the actual redemption of Cyberpunk 2077. But first, I have time for the shameless shill. Sunglasses. Why the fuck did I write sunglasses emoji in the script? The fuck is wrong with me? But I don't particularly like begging for subscribers like a poor street urchin in Oliver Twist. Strange reference. But if you are at all enjoying, please consider subscribing and liking the video, as the engagement that would give a small channel like mine would be invaluable. You don't have to, but it would be insanely appreciated. Anyway, back to the video. Like a phoenix from the ashes, like Gandalf at Helm's Deep, or some other obscure nerd pop culture reference that involves returning from almost certain death, CDPR came and first initiated damage control. After publishing the now infamous yellow Twitter post, the dev team set to work righting their wrongs, leading us to our first point on how exactly 2077 was resurrected. That being the... Cyberpunk's dev team must honestly be some of the most committed in the industry, because I cannot lie, if I had received anywhere near the same level of backlash, I would have hidden in a deep, dark cave and done a Jesus, except I would not have returned after 3 days, and I'm sorry if you're religious and I just blaspheme, but it's written in the script, so I gotta say it. Genuinely, the amount of dedication they had to fixing how the product came out can be seen in the multiple media appearances made after the disastrous launch. For example, with lead quest designer stating that the team is still improving the game, because we're all aware that there is work to be done. We are working on stuff for you. Like, I'm literally daily reviewing quests, talking to people about stuff, so it is happening. And even the CEO of CDPR commented just days after the game launched, comments made on the 15th of December 2020, that the cost of patching the game is irrelevant compared to what we have at stake at the moment. So there's no question about it. We definitely want to fix the game. We made our promise to gamers and we will be doing everything to fix it. This goes to show the commitment demonstrated by CDPR at the time. And I mean, I understand what the CEO means. As before the release of Cyberpunk 2077, it seemed that CD Projekt could do no wrong, especially not after the runaway success of The Witcher 3 and the free DLC, garnering widespread acclaim. Even winning Ultimate Game of the Year at the Golden Joysticks, and also winning the hearts of gamers all over the world at the same time. And seeing them fall from grace is like being a child and becoming disillusioned with your father. However, unlike your father, at least CDPR had the will to improve. I'm sorry, he's not getting better. And boy did they improve, pumping out 6 large patches over the next year. Cyberpunk was making a slow but sure return to form, and it was all because of the commitment demonstrated by the developers through not giving up on the game. It's also obvious that they couldn't abandon the game, though, to be fair, because of the massive time and money sunk into the game already was. Sunk cost fallacy and all. And also the morale damage and potential legal ramifications, considering there already was a class action lawsuit that had to get settled outside of court for $1.85 million. The more pragmatic of you will probably assign the continued work to these reasons, but instead I like to look at it as more of an indomitable human spirit moment rather than a fucking greed of humanity moment. But then something would come along and propel Cyberpunk's resurgence, even more than any update could have done, more than any form of social media campaign, or anything else. If anything, it was a stroke of genius. Picture this. Again. Now a less overweight 18-year-old me is chilling in college. UK college, not American. When all of a sudden he's like, damn, I want to play Cyberpunk again. So he pulls out his phone and then BAM!
I couldn't wait for you to come and clear the cupboard. But now you're gone and leaving nothing but a sign. Another evening I'll be sitting reading in between your lines, because I miss you all the time. So get away, another way to feel what you didn't want yourself to know, and let yourself go. You know you didn't lose your self-control. There's snow under the rainbow. Turn away, another
Edgerunners cannot be understated in the resurgence of Cyberpunk as a game, and in fact is one of the factors that I most saw myself. Edgerunners took me, my friends, and honestly everyone around me by storm, so basically just me. It was like 1 week, nobody even thought of Cyberpunk since the launch, and the next I can go 5 minutes without hearing the soundtrack and being reminded of the absolute heartbreak that the show was. I had friends that always decried Cyberpunk as being an abandoned, waste-flying spaceship woman. The entire show was like an acid trip. Anyway, the perfect animation combined with the exquisite character writing that Cyberpunk 2077 was already packed full of created an unforgettable story of heartbreak, of loss, and of making the most of what you have while you have it. The impact delivered after the anime dropped can be observed through Google Trends, with Cyberpunk 2077 search interest going up about 10%, which compared to the complete lack of traction since the launch helped create the necessary environment for future updates and content drops. Sasko, the quest designer I spoke about earlier, helps explain how Edgerunner fans translated into playing the game, stating that Cyberpunk Edgerunners did an incredible job of introducing people into the world in a gentle way. Cyberpunk puts you in that world, and from the very beginning there are things happening. There are fixes, there's cyberware, there's skill tree, tunes, the lingo, the people. There's a lot of things that overload your cognitive capabilities. And for Edgerunners, Bartos, our narrative director for comics and animation, focused on the core. Overall, the impact that Edgerunners had on the eventual success of Cyberpunk cannot be understated, paving the way for the future of updates and content while placing 2077 back in the public's eyes as a whole. However, there is one more drop that is arguably even more significant.
Clock's ticking. Relic will finish me sooner rather than later.
Think this is it, kiddo.
I made so many mistakes.
Johnny!
Did terrible things.
Phantom Liberty changed everything. Like, quite literally, the 2.0 update that it was released with concurrently significantly changed how the game not only played, but also delivered on several features that were promised but never delivered upon. That's what I just said. Like the fabled actual police system to like a more GTA style system. Not mystical, magical cops that just happened to be wherever crimes were just committed. This bit was so bad that it was even referenced in Edgerunners.
Pigs keep appearing out of thin Air Force. No end to them.
Alongside the police, they added actual rideable metro systems, which were promised in the E3 trailer that I played as like B footage earlier. Vehicle combat was added, AI changes to make combat a little less predictable, a complete perk overhaul, a complete cyberware overhaul, actual traffic. And that's just to name a few. Here's the full patch notes if you want to read it. Just pause or something, or go find it. I'll have a bibliography down there, it'll be somewhere in there. Whilst the update didn't deliver absolutely everything promised prior to release, the sheer amount of content it added more than, in my opinion, and quite frankly, a lot of people's opinions, made up for this. And that's just the patch. Phantom Liberty itself is a whole nother beast, adding a whole new area to the game, a new James Bond-inspired spy thriller storyline that honestly reaches the peaks of Edgerunners at the end, new weapons and side missions that also reach the level of quality that players have come to expect from the main game's main story missions. Whilst I could analyze the whole DLC here, I don't want this video to be like 2 hours long. It's got enough content that I can make a whole nother video this length about, so I'll refrain from spoiling the story of the DLC and insist that if you do want to play it, go get the game. It's relatively cheap now for like AAA games, and after everything, as long as you aren't still chained to an old default PS4 or Xbox, you should be in for an amazing experience. The DLC had more effects than just bringing the game up to where it should have been, but also doubled up by almost universally reaching fan expectations. This did what people in 2020 would have considered impossible, and by and large, the reputation of CD Projekt Red has mostly been restored to its pre-launch status. Obviously, some lingering doubts will always remain about any new big budget launches from CDPR, but by and large, they smashed it out of the proverbial park with the launch in Phantom Liberty and Patch 2.0, and did what many considered an insurmountable challenge, took the bloody, battered corpse of a game and changed it into a shining beacon of what RPGs can be. What spurred me to make this video in the first place was the news that the company, CDPR, will be sunsetting the game with no more major updates, no more new content, no more new stories, and moving on to further projects. To hear a game that I hold dear to me would no longer be worked on would normally make me upset or angry or some other flavour of negative emotion, but in this case, it seemed deserved. Cyberpunk had been born a mess that only a select few could love, but through the ceaseless work of a committed dev team, it had been transformed into something amazing. When I heard the news of the game coming to an end, I felt content that a game I loved so much had such a good send-off, and I think that is all any of us can ask for. I just hope that the eventual Cyberpunk 2 can hold up and even surpass the heights to which Cyberpunk reached, and that the game will never fade away.
What you did to me, I know. Said what you had to say, but I think of beauty will never fade away.
So that was that. Hope you enjoyed me rambling about a game I really enjoy for however long this video will turn out to be. I've been really enjoying the process of making videos and will definitely make more, but if you did enjoy, even a little, liking and subscribing would make my entire day right now. I know a lot of YouTubers do this, but according to the algorithm, call to actions like this are the easiest way to increase engagement, and I do want to try and do this full time. But if not, I'm fine for this to be my little side project where I release silly videos. Either way, let me know in the comments if you have any fond memories of Cyberpunk or if you have anything at all to share. If not then, see you in the next one.